It is 5 o'clock, and like usual, we start our event. First of all, let me remind you about our mobile app. For the ones that did not download the mobile app, please do so. You can check in the events. You can receive all the notifications. Therefore, we will not send you that many emails, so we don't clutter your email box. It's gonna be useful for polls and for you to stay connected. We're still gonna do it for a while in both ways for the ones that did not download the app yet. But soon we're gonna communicate only through the app. So please download it if you don't, or if you didn't do it yet. Let me also share with you our partners. It's thank you to all of you that are on our side. We're a team. We're a one big team. And in times like this, this collective wisdom, this togetherness, it's going to get us through. So thank you to all our partners for that and for sticking with us all this time. As rules of engagement for this event, like usual, everybody should turn the microphones off. And towards the end, we can also chat. Your questions will be seen in the chat. And will be addressed to our speaker, to our guest. Okay, for the next event, we have two wonderful people, authors of Dark Cockpit. It's going to be this Thursday, and it's going to be a very interesting discussions for some of you that did not read the book. It's a very good read. Good advices, and experience-wise, we will talk to both of them on Thursday. Today, we have a special guest, a friend of ours. He's the president of Banca Comerciala Romana and the first Romanian CEO appointed by the majority shareholder. He sponsored BCR's involvement in financial education, sustainable development, and social entrepreneurship. He was working over 15 years as an investment and commercial banking executive in global markets realm. Previously, he was a managing partner in Tuba Capital, a private investment firm in Vienna. He also acted as a managing director at Bank Austria Creditanstalt, and he filled various roles in financial market in ABN AMRO, Bucharest, and London. So it's a pleasure, and I am glad that I can call him a friend. Everybody, please welcome Sergiu Manea. Sergiu, welcome to our event.
Thank you very much for having me. I can say that downloading the app is a good experience. I just did it right now. So go on the App Store or on the Google Store, find Klubo. You'll have Sotiri's name as developer, so it's going to be very hard for you to miss it.
He worked so hard on it. You know, he was programming and coding. I mean, every time we came to the office, we saw him into the laptop, you know, very invested. Sergiu?
No comment.
I know. You're fixing the bugs now. We took a little time for him to come to the event. How does all this going on for you? How does this impacted you in the last period of time, given that you probably didn't have, 1 second off?
I go back to beginning of January when I was watching TV, and I said, this is another SARS. right? You watch TV or you read news and look at things and you say, this may be another SARS. And then as the days are passing, actually the fear factor comes in, right? You start thinking, okay, oh my God, but maybe it's more than SARS. Maybe it's more than Zika. Maybe it's becoming much bigger. And you don't think about globalization, the fact that everything spreads so far. You don't even think to the American movies where a pandemic goes around in a matter of days. You just hope that nothing happens. And you hope that nothing happens for a couple of days, and then you start preparing, following one of my favorite B-series movies or books, Lee Child, Jack Reacher, and you say, you hope for the best and prepare for the worst. This is how we started in the beginning of second decade of February, so around 10th of February, we started looking at our business continuity and contingency. Definitely at that time we didn't know that we are going to get to this level. I didn't think that actually we are going to have a lockdown. The only thing I thought about at that time was we need to make sure that the bank can operate safely and securely whatever happens. And when you say the bank operates safely and securely, it means that your people are healthy and your people feel secure, so they can actually do their tasks and do they are able to do their work. So this is how it all started. I remember that as we are going with the thinking process on the continuity, I was supposed to have a couple of days of skiing, which I think they were my worst days of skiing since I remember. And I'm an eternal beginner, so I'm not on a great skier. But I remember on 13th of February, I took a day off and I went to Sinaia, where I had the most beautiful 1 hour of skiing. But then the piste was closed because of the wind. And already on the way down, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, I was on calls about how the planning is done, how the task forces are being set up, how the business continuity planning stream is being built, and how we manage at the task level to ensure or to plan for continuity. Then 2 weeks later, I was supposed to go to skiing in Austria with a friend of mine. We do this every year. For 2 days, just the two of us, and I thought that it's going to be like last year, where we were actually the most amusing people in the restaurant, which was almost empty, but we were the most amusing people, or at least we thought so. But actually, we were the saddest in the restaurant, because he's working in a financial institution as well, who has large operations in Italy. So he was very much involved. I was very much involved in the planning. It was beginning of it was the week of 24th of February, 24th to 28th of February. I was already frustrated because on Tuesday that week, Italy declared state of emergency. Why I was frustrated? Because Romania didn't declare state of emergency in the same time. So I cannot really remember how things were starting, but what I told you, my life changed. My life changed every day. So we were trying to stay as much informed as possible. We were trying to make sure that there's no, I'll be very, not very academic, that there is no bullshit in what we tell our people and what we ask our people. And we went on planning, from creating interaction protocols to creating evacuation protocols. We had no cases so far, talking about the health, and then I let you ask the next question. We had, in fact, 2 colleagues from the bank which were infected. Both are safe and in a good medical condition. In fact, they are not in the hospital anymore. And we had 2 colleagues from our subsidiary who had the same infection. They are both healthy. One of them is still in the hospital, but we track their medical situation every day. So we had no other things than this. We obviously paid lots of attention when Suceava developed in the basket case before actually the lockdown of the region, and we tried to limit as much as we could basically the negative interaction. I'm proud to say that all our branches were at all times open. I'm proud to say that basically all our machines, including ATMs, were always working. And I'm proud to say that we didn't have any trouble whatsoever in serving with cash our customers, especially during the first 2 weekends of excitement, when people were just withdrawing cash, gold, no matter if they had small money or big money, they were just withdrawing. But we had no problem in serving that, by and large. So this is how my life changed. In the meantime, I was in the bank every day. I mean, I didn't oblige my colleagues, my assistant, to be in. I'm not using a driver anymore, although I should for security reasons. But we are trying to make sure that things are as distant physically as possible and as close emotionally as possible.
Security for you or for the others?
Well, I leave it open.
I'm kidding, of course. How did you react in the past weeks? Like, how did that train of thoughts went from the beginning to now?
Well, I think the secret, there was no secret. The secret was that immediately when we realized that basically there is no turning back, and no turning back, as I said, was probably as a mental realization the moment when Italy declared state of emergency. And knowing what is happening there, we said we just need to be prepared for the worst. We didn't have a crystal ball, but we have, for example, daily board interactions. Until security stopped us, we used Zoom. Then we deployed in a hurry, although we were planned to deploy in June this year the Teams, the Microsoft 360. Yes, the Microsoft suite. We deployed it much faster. And every day, the board, the 5 of us, we were talking. And we were talking for 1 hour. Every and each of us was communicating what he, she was seeing, what he, she was fearing, what he, she was concerned about. It doesn't matter if it was personal or if it was business or if it was formal or it was informal. We had a very strong BCP, which is run by our chief risk officer, who, by the way, is new in the bank and in the position, together with our chief operating officer and our chief retail officer. And we did not substitute ourselves as board to the BCP stream. Whatever the BCP stream was deciding, we were following to the ball. So the same discipline applied to me or applied to a junior analyst who just joined the bank, I don't know, in January. So continuous conversation was one of the points. So we evolved from one day to another without putting pressure on ourselves. And I think that this was very important. The same thing we did, every and each of us, with the key parts of either the BCP or of the line management. And we had, as I said, several preoccupations. We need to be able to serve our critical operations. And critical operation means, first and foremost, we are able to collect and execute payments. Then we are able to collect and execute credit requests. Then we are able to collect and execute interrogations coming from our customers. And in order to do that, you know that you have to have the front office, so-called linia întâi today, who is able to collect and deal calmly and diligently with the requests. Then it goes to the mid-end and then to the back-end. Back-end was critical for us. And because our infrastructure was not that nimble and flexible at that time, in the meantime, it is better, especially to support teleworking for operations and support multiple location working for our call center, we had to spread around. We start with operations and we move from one site. We operated for a while from 4 sites, but we operated well. This is what we did in February. Then we organized the shifts. Then we made sure that the shifts never meet with each other. Same thing we did with our call center. Our call center was able to support from the infrastructure perspective a peak of 6,000 calls. Now it takes 16,000 a day. And yes, it was not a walk in the park. And was not the same call center was not prepared for teleworking. Now we found some smart solutions and we have call center volunteers operating either from our branches or some of them from home. We did the same with the branches. We kept all branches open, but we sent half of the staff at home in the so-called passive teleworking under curfew. You don't meet to your colleague who is basically serving. You stand by. If, for example, we had the suspicion that a client or a colleague was not feeling well, we would close the branch. We will do the disinfectation immediately. All people will be sent home and the reserve would come in. So, but these are things we actually developed on a daily basis. Yes, we were quite early. So at the end of February, beginning of March, we had the full, let's say, generic protocols. What do we do if? And basically, we did not allow, even at the communication level, any type of psychosis, meaning we were not harsh, but we said there is only one communication stream and that communication stream is at the disposition of the BCP. So once we stabilized the contingency, we started communicating for our colleagues and for our customers, going beyond managing the next 24 hours. So what's important? Don't leave any client unattended. What's important? Try to basically pick up every phone and try to compress actually the time a customer waits until it has a reaction from us. Then we had already, I believe, on 23rd of March, we had the first offer to our clients in terms of payment holidays made by BCR, which we published actually on our site on Friday. I think it was 23rd of March, and we started collecting requests. So all these things are done, or actually were done, because we think it is very important that people feel that we are there for them. And subsequently, we started communicating, as I said, constantly and continuously. It doesn't matter if there are our colleagues who are basically introducing the first guide for the small companies, how to survive or how to navigate through the crisis, or if it was the press conference which I had with Dana last week for the first time in a virtual manner, discussing about matters going on. And we decided to have that press conference despite the fact that we couldn't talk numbers, as we will show numbers only on Thursday, April the 30th. But we thought it's important. So while it's managing, let's say, while it's managing the 24 hours, we started basically at the beginning to say, okay, we managed 24 hours. How do we enlarge the spectrum to 48 hours? And from 48 hours to 72 hours? And from 72 hours to 1 week or 2 weeks? And so on and so forth. And next week, we are going to start actually an organized process for strategy for strategy review, which will go on for the next couple of months. So if we are just growing. I mean, we don't know these things. We are learning. I've been in a financial crisis actually twice, actually 3 times. 98, 2001, and 2007, 2010. What happens now has nothing to do with what happened before.
But were there any learnings that you got from before? It's definitely not.
The only learnings I got from before, when I thought I'm smart, was that have a very strong balance sheet and have liquidity at any time. That will save you whatever happens. And we have a strong balance sheet, and we have ample liquidity. But in terms of what's happening today, when the very safety, not of the operations, but of the people is put under question mark, I've never seen anything like this. And I hope, honestly, although Obama said 5 years ago that we need to prepare for an airborne disease, I hope that I will not experience it going forward.
You adapted pretty fast, and you told us some measures that you took in this period. But you as a leader, what were your stages? What were your thoughts in between now? Looking back, it's been already a month and a half of at least the.
Well, I'll be honest to you. I'm having trouble sleeping, so that's the reason for I say. I don't know. Look. I will not say I love crisis, because actually I don't love crisis. But I know that basically there are 7,000 people looking at us, around about 3 million customers, and basically we need to be very simple, and we need to be very clear in what we are doing, and we need to employ lots of common sense. That's about it. And me, look, I have great people around me. I think in this, as I said, since mid-February until now, I have yet another proof that I have great people around me. And actually, my guts was to actually make sure we encourage expertise, not power, not the position of strength in the organization, but encourage expertise. Let people talk. And I'll give you an example. Maybe it's not very telling, but I'll still give it to you. And it's about the small things. It's about the small things. We said we need to communicate. We need to communicate constantly and continuously. Now we are sending almost every day, actually every 48 hours, a small thing to everybody, which is called Bine de știut, good to know. And it's about recommendations for movies and for theater on the virtual on the virtual scene, to things which are about the psychology on how basically you should engage with your children during this period. We have the change management area, which put together based on their own experience and what they collected from the bank while being at home, a small guide how to work from home as a person and as a manager, looking and considering actually the things we all deal with. We don't deal with spreadsheets and with restart of Romania. No, we don't deal with that. We deal with our children who are at home, and probably we never had them at home for such a long time. We deal with frustration. We deal with fear. We deal with the restriction of our rights and liberties, which maybe we don't realize at this level, but deep down inside, I think this is what we deal with. So this is one point. The other point is we communicated, we have digital labs, right? We have 4 digital labs now, looking at different product features, experiences, and the advanced analytics. They continue to work. They adjusted their backlogs, and they are pushing actually in production. Yes, they cannot do it from home. One of them or 2 of them need to come at work and actually push it into the production after testing. Features. We are organizing a 5th digital lab now. We are in the discovery phase. The entire team and everything was done completely remote. Those people have seen each other only on Zoom or on Teams. What I'm trying to say is that you need to basically, or what I tried to do, I don't know if I managed. Yes, I was worried. I was trying not to show that I'm scared. Actually, I was not scared, but I was really worried. I was really concerned. I really had second thoughts. What about this? What about that? What if, what that? But I just managed to actually make sure that we all are, or we feel that we are there for each other. That's the only thing which I did. The rest, it just came up. And it comes up because people we work are very good, are very intelligent, and they are driven by this, I don't know, I felt this sense of solidarity and willingness to prove that we are worth something like I've never felt it before. And I'm pretty sure you guys felt that in your companies as well.
This thing disrupted many things, many processes, and is accelerating a lot of them also. How is that in the banking system? What is changing? What is going to happen throughout this period in the banking system? And maybe what did you bring that it's faster today? You told us a little bit about some.
Yeah, sure. Look, first of all, I think that once we are kind of making a step forward and go, let's say, beyond the first 24 hours of survival, as I like to call them, or the first 100 hours of survival, depends on the literature you can. I think there are several trends or mega trends which are going to basically change the way businesses, and especially the B2C is looking or is dealing with things. One of them, I think what we've seen emerging, and I believe it's here to stay, is the sort of a contactless economy, right? So I think that this is to stay. And the measures we took, because we have lots of operations that works. It's from, current account maintenance and KYC to credit card renewal. It is from serving a loan to actually signing a mortgage which you contracted 1 month ago, but it's going to the approval stage. It is a very complex project finance transaction which still needs to be signed and closed to basically newly emerged basically credit requests coming from an SME or from a micro company. And what we tried to do is to move away from the physical interaction as much as we could to move away from there into a more remote banking. Because I'm not saying digital banking, I'm saying remote banking. And I do believe that basically call center played a critical role. And as I said, it's not about the core business of the call center, but business structure, but it's about the flexible allocation of resources around the call center. So for example, we have a call center which has 130 people. I'm just giving you a number. In the meantime, we have 20 volunteers in the head office who are enriching the call center, and we have in each of the type A branches, 2 to 5 colleagues who are able to ensure flexible allocation of capacity related to the call center inbounds, because we do lots of inbounds, as you can mention. Then we moved in terms of, for example, we said, do we need customers to come to the bank and renew their card or do whatever? No. So we had mass SMSs, and hopefully we are going to move faster to push notifications as a general rule in order to basically make sure our customers know what is it that they need to do, and they know that they need not to come anymore, but we are going to do it for them and sending it at home, either as I said, as a card or as a PIN or as a statement or whatever. The very positive surprise was that we managed for certain processes like pensions or like APIA, we managed to basically, even together with the state agencies, change some of their processes so that it is not required that, for example, someone who needs to get an APIA subsidy comes to the bank, enters in the contact with the branch, takes the statement, takes it to the APIA, and then based on that, APIA sends a message to the bank, and the bank credits the account, and then the customer comes again, takes the statement, and withdraws the money. We managed to basically cut all this walk through. Same with the pensions. I think that these are very encouraging signs, as I said, about what would be the role of a service provider. And the role of a service provider will not be to manufacture a product or a service in front of the customer, but will be just to deliver that respective service or product. And basically the people working for the service provider should rather try to understand, not in the wooden language of, let me understand your need, but really try to understand what is it that we can do for the respective customers, not only related to the product, but also to the way we can deliver. So if there is something which really strikes to mind is this contactless economy, which again means probably acceleration of the digital transformation, because without front to back, so digitization to the core, this will not fly. Flexible capacity allocation, which I think it's absolutely critical. Repurpose the head office, repurpose the branches and the role of the branches, or maybe maybe it may mean, as I said, contractless economy, one of the four, or maybe four of them, or maybe 10, which I don't even, 10 attributes, which I don't even think about.
So you're thinking of a branchless or fewer branches, because this is going to change also the way we process in the organization, not only with the customer, but how you're going to organize this in, you know, inside with office space or branches or things like that, because it accelerated the idea that it's feasible and that you can do it.
I think it will be a different role. So I cannot comment numbers, and I will not comment numbers because honestly, truly, I don't really know if someone, in order to have confidence, needs to see, or someone from the current generation needs, current meaning looking at me, needs to see basically a brick and mortar, even if that brick and mortar has a machine, but he needs to see it before interacting only with this. But maybe when someone talks about his mortgage, his pension, his wealth, his savings, will not want to talk to an algorithm. When someone has a financial health problem, he will not like to talk to an algorithm, would like to talk to a person who knows what the client goes through and maybe comes with an advice. Maybe, in fact, we will need more consultants and advisors and not less. Maybe we need to repurpose. All options, as far as I'm concerned, are on the table.
What about the fintech companies? How do you see fintech companies evolving after this crisis? And can be this period and this event the end of cash?
End of cash. I hope so. I mean, end of cash came already very close to our shores, if I may say. I think I mentioned, I don't know if to you or to Sotiris, but I love Scandinavia, and I go 3-4 days there from time to time. I just drive a car north. Wherever the gas ends, I stop, I turn the car. Hopefully it happens in a gas station, and then I come back. I never need to use cash when I go there, like literally nothing. What is very interesting is that actually lately in Bucharest, or actually in the last 6 weeks, I didn't use cash either. Also very interesting, my parents, who are 75 and 74, they didn't use cash either. They just, of course, asked me to pay their întreținere, so their monthly dues. And then I taught them how to do it, and they didn't use cash either. I think it's coming, and I think that this is I believe a great benefit. As I said, beyond that, I think we need to be very nimble in terms of understanding how we, and here I'm talking when I say we, how we 80 people who are around this call, are we able to distill what are the good practices which we discovered during this period and make them stick in our companies, in our communities, in our families, with our friends. It doesn't matter. But how can we make these practices stick? Because, as you know, everything is for a while reversible, and then until it is not so.
A moratorium with a high impact in the financial banking area, and not only, was voted in the parliament, which is contested at the Constitutional Court, whatever. What do you think are the chances of this moratorium to become law, and what impact could it have?
Okay, so in order to respect the historical truth, we have two contestations of the Constitutional Court. One of a law, which is a public moratorium, and also of the law which consecrates, would actually approves the current public moratorium, meaning Ordinance 37. Look, I think that the Ordinance 37, which is the current public moratorium, is a balanced measure, which also, in my opinion, is very mindful of the things which are very, very important and proved in the financial crisis are also very, very painful. And that is the house ownership. So it really tackles the mortgage part, which is important for the consumers, and it's important also for the banks. And why not? Looking at the prima casa, it's important. Now, to answer to your question, what are the chances that the current laws which are being, because there are two laws, as I said, contested in Constitutional Court, to come? Well, I really don't know. For me, the constitutional process is still something which I don't really understand. I don't really gather. I wish that basically, because it's a matter of such importance for our country and for the people living here, we would not have competing solutions. And that's the only thing I wished. That basically we would have developed together, private sector, the different branches of the state, government, parliament, one single solution for the entire market. As a client of ours told me, a small company which produces furniture, and as you can imagine, they are quite impacted. He told me, look, I don't know if the government measures are good or bad. I just want to see them happen. For me, the most important thing is that basically any measure of support which is announced actually reaches to me in the shortest amount possible. And I think that we should reflect on this for the next crisis which will come.
We'll definitely do. Are the banks and the government work together for measures that they can take to support SMEs and big corporations? And what is also BCR doing in that sense?
Sorry, can you please repeat? Sorry, I apologize.
For the banking system that works with the government in supporting SMEs and companies or big corporations, and what is BCR particularly doing in that sense?
Yeah, okay. So if I mean, as you probably seen, if you manage to, I mean, if you have time, we think that the primary objective should be that we maximize the probability that as many as possible companies are going to survive, targeting, of course, maximizing the probability that as many of the jobs today will continue to exist, and also to maximize the probabilities that these jobs will continue to pay in the range they paid before the pandemic. And that's the reason for we believe that it's absolutely critical that the intervention at the employer level is the one which should take stock. Our intervention is basically threefold. First is obviously on the interaction side. So we are having a by far deeper and more frequent interaction with our customers, I believe, than before. And this is one of the lessons we need to learn, and we will keep that going. The objective being to understand what is it that we can do in order to help, and also to understand what is it the respective clients, companies, as I said, irrespective if they are small or high, are doing. Once we understand that, we offer, as I said, the BCR payment holiday, or we offer OJ 37. Because we believe it does have, and we try to compress the processes in such a manner that the respective customers see this payment holiday as soon as possible in their cash flow. It is not about the net worth now. Now it's about cash. That's point number one. Point number two, as I said, we made a compendium of what the small and medium companies can do, putting in one everything, from the announcements regarding the chômage techniques or technical unemployment, going to social contribution, going to bank, going to government, and so on and so forth. Some of the measures have been enacted, some of the measures were not enacted. But this is the first layer of intervention. Understand if they are in a trouble or not, understand what is their preference and for what do they qualify, and operate that as fast as possible. Level of intervention 1. Level of intervention 2 is obviously to prepare our processes for fast absorption of an as high as possible amount on the IMM Invest. It doesn't mean that the money are going to go to everybody. We will still keep our underwriting standards, to be very, very clear and very precise, but it's very clear something which will help the customers, will help us, and will help the state in the end. And this is what we work internally to be able to collect and operate as fast as possible the respective absorption on the IMM Invest. But of course, there are companies who don't qualify to IMM Invest, right? The definition is very clear. It covers a big part of the market, but not the entire market. And there we just follow the credit process, but with higher intensity. So we really go on the customer and say, it's small, it's big, it doesn't matter. We just really go and say, how can we help? How can we help? There is another important thing which I forgot to mention, rather on the pillar 1. We made sure that actually we prolonged the lines. We made sure that we didn't freeze the lines. So actually the companies could actually draw if they needed to. But that's rather a hygiene measure which actually creates consistency with the promise. And the third block will basically be constant monitoring of the development of our clients with the aim of a more structured intervention into the year 2021. Because for me, the big question is, okay, what's gonna happen January 1, 2021? How many companies from Romania Incorporated or Romania SA, so Romania SRL or Romania SA, will basically be roaring? How many will need support? And unfortunately, how many will not restart the business? They are as important. They are as important. And we can do that, and we can give an advice only if we stick with them every day, every week, going forward. So basically, these are the three layers at the bank level. And in combination, as I said, with our resources and with the instruments which are being offered by the state or will be offered by the European Union. Then structurally, we are trying to help. We are trying to not help. We are giving input, and it's the same input as we gave in the past as regards the priorities and the opportunities for our country looking forward. And here I will just mention only 2. I mean, obviously, I don't want to talk again about absorption of the EU funds and infrastructure and so on and so forth, but I will talk about three big opportunities. Opportunity number 1 is basically, which is more distant, but I'm not saying it's bigger, I'll just give it in an order. I believe that a big part of the supply chain will be relocalized, closer to the consumer markets or in markets which are perceived safer. I think Romania should actually apply and should create a proposition for rebasing of these supply chains. Second, I think Romania should take a deep look into the trade balance deficit it has today and build industries and build excellence exactly in the places where we have a gap. And be surprised or not, I know you know it, but I love to say it out loud. The biggest contributors to our negative trade balance are food, petrochemicals used in agri, meaning fertilizer, pesticides, and fertilizer and pesticides. I don't remember the third category. And last but not the least, in pharmaceuticals. Yeah, so if you look at that, I think at least you have an idea that it's a matter of national security to become self-sufficient around these three industries. And I think we can. And I think that the Romanian market is big enough in order to support some very efficient, nimble players in the sector. This is basically the second. This is the first thing first and second thing we are looking at. And the third thing, which I think it's a huge opportunity, is the modernization, the digitization of the Romanian state. I think again, changes in processes here and there, I think during this period of time show that this is not only an aspiration, this is a must. Because it will enable us to read better the data, it will enable us to collect better, it will enable us to be less heavy when it's about taking fast decisions and making sure that those decisions are actually being executed. This, I think, would be my priorities. Not to mention that digitization of the Romanian state, as I said earlier, will enable us to finally circulate the digital highway. We seem to have built at the infrastructure level.
We're gonna open more towards the questions from the chat. What do you expect in the recovery period once the healthcare crisis become more manageable? IMF was referencing a crisis for emerging markets similar to the 30s, but at the same time, many companies are hoping for a V-shaped recovery. What do you expect?
Look, I watched the IMF conference. I was quite impressed with what they said. I just think they used wrong comparators, but that's me and my math saying that. Look, it's unprecedented. It's equally a supply shock and a demand shock. We can look at numbers. We can look at GDP plunge. I think we need to be very determined to do whatever it takes and actually not contemplate things. What do I mean by whatever it takes? It's what I said earlier. Whatever it takes in order to maximize the number of jobs which are still going to exist. And in the meantime, give enough time that give it enough time that we are able to realize what really happens and what will really happen. Because I'm afraid we are far from that today. If you are asking me, I think, first of all, the exit from the health crisis is going to be much slower than we think. I believe, at least in my mind, that basically the moment we are going to say COVID-19 is behind us will be either the moment when we are going to reach a global spiritual enlightenment, or we are going to have a vaccine which is efficient and deployed at the global scale. Whatever comes first. Until then, we need to be prepared for a slow exit and sometimes rollbacks. But that should not scare us. So, based on this slow exit from the health crisis, which may involve rollbacks, I do not expect a V-shape as my base or my working scenario, but rather a protracted, volatile move back, which will entail also the fact that certain sectors are going to thrive and certain sectors are going to become either very localized or very limited. So if I am to say, I don't know how to draw it. Yeah, I'll draw it like this. So it will not be a V. I don't think it will be a U. I think it will rather be like this. So we have stop, 2020 recession, and then it is going to be like this. Why? Because the full recovery or the full restart will not mean that the behaviors we had before these are going to come back unchanged and everybody will go back to the way she was living before. No, we don't have a vaccine yet. We don't even have a proven cure. We don't have a paracetamol for COVID-19. We don't have a ampicillin for COVID-19. We have nothing. We don't even have rapid testing. So I think I would be very cautious in looking at V shapes, W shapes, U shapes, or L shapes even, which is the worst of all, of course, until we have clarity in terms of exit from the health crisis.
But talking about the IMF, what are the chances of having a new agreement with the IMF?
Well, an IMF agreement by definition, and again, I'm starting going back in my youth, and I thank you for that, Virgil. The first one which I've seen or heard about was not in Romania, but was in actually also in Romania, was around the Russian crisis, in an Asian crisis, and then Russian crisis. It's a political decision. An IMF package always comes with conditions, right? An IMF package with conditions needs a full political backing from the entire political spectrum, from left to right, or a very strong majority in the parliament, which gives a very strong government. I don't think that politically the conditions are met today that we are going to have an IMF agreement. However, I believe that conditions are maybe met if we want to have a sort of a safety belt from the IMF for the unconditional package. But I don't think we need the safety belt coming from the unconditional package. I think we need a more forward-looking view. So I don't think that the political conditions are met for an IMF package today in Romania.
Do you see a risk of capital control in Romania like Greece before?
Out of question.
Okay, that was fast. Okay, today the IMM Invest launched again. BCR is well prepared to deal with the high expected number of requests for guarantees for the SMEs, having digitalized a lot of the internal procedures around loans. What do you think should be the role of the state in enabling the higher bankratization of the SMEs? And where do you see the role of banks going forward in the post-COVID period?
Thank you for the question. I think that basically our processes are going to be tested. That's no debate around that. No matter the amount of automation, no matter the amount of fastness on the processes, we are going to be tested, and we are going to be the ones testing ourselves because, as I said, our aspiration is to be able to deploy the entire amount we committed to. We'll see if we have enough market and if our processes will stick, but we are going to definitely strive for that. Now, the role of the state in terms of enabling higher bancarization of the SMEs, well, we are discussing about that and for a while, and I believe that now the discussion is even more important. The real problem is that, again, it's not a discussion in between a bank and the government. It's a discussion in between companies, first and foremost, the state and the banks, in defining what bankable means. And once drawing the conclusion on what bankable means, then certain rules and regulations will have to apply, from the level of capitalization to dividend payment, from the level of fiscalization to the discipline in actually following and paying invoices or issuing checks and so on and so forth. So I think it's a big construct. I firmly see that the main problem in terms of bankability comes from the lack of equity capital. We are a young economy. We are coming not from a peak of wealth, actually, in the past, I don't know, 30, 50 years. lack of equity capital, it's there. So I believe it's a lot about education, facilitation. So basically, the state should encourage the company owners to keep as much capital in the respective companies, right? But it's a lot also about education regarding maybe at a certain moment in lifetime of a company to actually attract a stronger partner in order to enable the growth. So I don't think we are going to have a very fast solution on that. But what I do believe we will have lots of public debates, many of them very emotional and for the right reason, but with no fast solution. I think it's a marathon. Which we will need to run, and we will need all together to run this marathon. The role of banks going forward in the post-COVID period. Well, I think if there is something which doesn't let me sleep overnight is exactly this question. And the answer to this question comes on the way we act and operate today. If the banks are not going to confirm their societal value from February 2020 to probably summer 2022, that's the time we have. There will be lots of people asking, why do we need banks? I don't know if I answered. It's not a poetic answer. It's really what doesn't let me sleep overnight.
Okay, thank you for that.
And here it's not about credit only. Here it's also about how do we interact with our depositors? How do they know and they feel that basically their money are safe with us? How do we basically make ourselves as part of the conversation in our communities and in our society? This is actually, this will define our future.
Okay, I know we don't have much time left, so we have around 10 or 15 minutes. I will ask the members also to turn the microphone on and ask the question if you want. If not, I'll continue to read the questions, but I think it's nice to see your faces, to smile at you again, and to have a live interaction for a change. Are clients more educated now than in 2009?
Yes. I think definitely yes. Also because we reached up to until now almost 500,000 people. I'm pretty sure other banks did the same. So I believe, but in true, honest financial education or personal finance classes. So yes, but you can also see it actually in the household's balance sheet. It is better, significantly better than it was in 2008, 2009. So the households are less leveraged, the companies are less leveraged, the banks are less leveraged. So in theory, we do have all it takes in order to prove resilience.
If there are questions, please ask. If not, I'll go further with the next one. From Laurențiu, hello Sergiu and everyone. Today I was told by Martin Irby, MD of Helaba Bank, that in the last days the cost of financing for the German banks increased with about 0.6%. Therefore, the interest rates will increase in very coming future. Given the money put on the market by the different governments, I was expecting even lower interest rates. What is your opinion, Sergiu, for the short time, end of the year, and for the medium term, 2021-22?
Right. I think the expectation is right and not right in the same time. The reason for the central banks are injecting liquidity is to make sure that liquidity exists and basically the banks are able to honor depositors' payments and so on and so forth. Now there is a transmission mechanism in between that moment and the moment it reaches out to credit. And it is not the price of refinancing, which, yes, indeed, it's low and it's provided ample. It provides ample. The central banks are providing ample liquidity, as I said, but it's about the price of risk. And I will give you a small example, if I may, because I put up a chart. I cannot share it with you, unfortunately, because I cannot from the technology perspective. There is an index which is called iTraxx crossover. It is a blended index of all the lending in Europe around sub-investment grade. Sub-investment grade. So just one notch below where Romania is today. This was trading in between 200 and 300 basis points in the last three years. It had some peaks around 400 basis points in 2016 and at the turn of the year 2018 to 2019. But it started the year very strong, around 200 basis points, reflecting the very strong expectations regarding the European economy. This traded at 700 basis points during the month of March. Now it's around 500 basis points. This is the price of risk, in fact, at the European level, price of risk perceived for lending. What I'm trying to say here is that the world in moments like this does not need a lender of last resort. It needs a buyer of last resort, a buyer of risk. That's the reason for, if you look to the Federal Reserve in US, one of the measures they took 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they announced two things. They are going to buy up to 500 billion municipal debt, and they are going to buy up to $600 billion in small and medium-sized enterprises loans from the banks. Buy, not lend against that collateral. They would buy outright because only buying creates capital cushion, which in turn will create more lending. And the fact that we are moving 60 basis points higher in Germany, it is quite a lot, but it's 1/10 of the move which you've seen in the crossover index in a matter of 30 days. What I can tell you is that as far as we are concerned, for now, we are not changing the pricing on the facilities we are committing to our customers.
Sergiu, sorry if I'm allowed, it's Christian.
Please, go ahead.
I've got a question, I also wrote it over there. To me, it's fairly clear, and I hope I'm wrong. I truly hope I'm wrong, that in the coming month, for those companies activating in highly hit sectors like, for example, tourism and Horeca and things like that, there are going to be some bad signs, right? I mean, liquidity and potentially companies going bust. So this potentially might rise the NPLs on the banks. Now, what do you see here a solution? And I'm looking here again, potentially from the state, in counter or reducing this risk. And I'm looking, for example, at what Switzerland has done and what UK recently has done yesterday. And you're mentioning also about this kind of buying or fully guaranteeing of these bad debt in a sense, right? And I'm also quite honest in the question, looking at the highly and the public debt of Romania, right? And as you mentioned, right, it's just 1 or 2 notches above junk rate. So yeah.
You're on.
Yeah, no, I was saying, Christian, I was just saying that it's only one notch, unfortunately, above, and all three rating agencies have us on the negative outlook. So for the first part of your question, I do expect an increase of the non-performing loans. No debate about that. What is going to be the depth of that? How big? How painful it is? I really cannot assess, but in the scenario which I drew, it is going to be quite a steep increase of the non-performance on the loan books. So I communicated what my base case scenario is. Obviously, NPL increase, steep increase, it's part of those attributes. Now, in terms of what the government should do, look, in fact, when governments are saying I'm buying $600 billion of SME loans, they are not giving $600 billion from their budget, right? They are actually taking a risk, which is a loss they may incur in that portfolio. The rest is only liquidity. I don't think that actually our government today is very far from thinking this. And you know me, I'm very optimistic. But I think having this conversation, and I think having this conversation on as many fronts as possible would only can help. Because I believe that at least in certain industries, I believe an action like this will be needed. If this action can be backed by European money, can be backed by supranational money, or can be backed by a mixture in between public and private sector money in a sort of a market, not moratorium, but market understanding, I don't know, but definitely it's something which is not very far away from the thinking of our current government. Yes, there is a problem, and always when such a daring measure will come on the table, everybody will start talking about the irresponsible fiscal policy Romania had in the last years and blah, 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 and we don't have resources. But I think, honestly, this conversation is secondary. We are in the discussion we are in, and we have to think measures, as many measures as we can, in order to actually deal with that. And I think that what the state should do, we should decide, basically, we do it for everybody, we do it for impacted sectors, or we do it for the sectors we believe are going to help Romania thrive in the future. This is where the discussion should be. And I believe that this type of mechanism can be instituted, either via, for example, the guarantee funds, if they would be merged in one, or via a special fund created for this period, via a consolidation fund to be built in such a period, and so on and so forth. I mean, you, Christy, have it within your firm, I believe, a huge library of potential instruments and interventions, and I think they can also be applied in Romania. Do we have resources for that? No. But at the end of the day, the question is, it's not about if we have resources today, but if it's worthwhile to employ it and then create resources for that. And I firmly believe it is the case.
Hello also from my side. I had the honor to meet Sergiu in an event for startups, and I really like his humility and, you know, the leadership and the curiosity for startups. So I would like to know, as BCR, you know, kind of is involving and partnering with Innovex, which is a kind of incubator for startups. What are the top 3 learnings that you have learned by having so many agile organizations, and what you will apply, as you know, because COVID is one part, so you can run digital projects, and at the same time you have many startups that you can apply many learnings. And my second part of question is, do you see in yourself in your company collaborating for inorganic growth with some of the startups, and what are your expectations regarding this? Thanks a lot, Sergiu.
Haris, thank you very much. Actually, you gave the answer to the first question with your second question. So I think what we learned, and I take it very serious, is that we learned how to operate the digital labs in a constrained, let's say, environment. And I think all my colleagues who were around the Innovix, were part of the pitches Innovix, were going there. I think they really learned quite a lot from the mindset perspective and from the approach perspective. We also could see that certain things we were able to do faster, right, by employing a straight-on partnership. And actually, if I'm looking at flexibility and speed, which is one of the three things which I retain, and I will also start introducing these three things. If I'm looking at flexibility and speed, the ability to create a partnership universe is absolutely critical for our future. Is it going to be done in the next 2 or 3 months? Definitely not. But definitely we will reach out more, because this is what we learned also, how to reach out more. Not to mention that we've seen now on the content side, we've seen amazing solutions, amazing ideas, and amazing products. And I believe we should reach out more in that direction.
I am here to help you.
Thank you very much. But reaching out, it's not about me. Reaching out is about actually my people in the digital, my colleagues in the digital lab, our colleagues manning the digital labs, our technology universe, our digital transformation. The more confident they will be, the more they will reach out for partners. This is how it works. So I don't know if I answered, but this is my view.
Sergiu, I have also one. It's a very short question. I had today an argue with some colleagues, and it's a very short question. Why do we look, or not? We're looking because we are. Why are we so fragile that in 2 months almost everything is very close to collapse?
Well, I think look in US, right? In US, you have 26 million jobless claims. It's a lot. I think the world was just not prepared for a supply shock and for a demand shock. The world was not prepared to deal, in fact, not with the virus, but with the lack of elasticity of the emergency rooms in the hospitals around the world. Because we built medical systems taking out from the consideration, also for efficiency reasons at the state level or the private level, taking out completely from the thinking the idea of a pandemic, right? It's not about the severity, it's about inability to actually provide enough beds in the emergency rooms or in the intensive care. We were not prepared.
I agree with you, even though in the past decade they are talking about the potential pandemic and trying to prepare for that. But from economic perspective, looking at the past century, we had recession, crisis, all the brilliant minds, and looking at December of all the forecasts related with the economic growth, now we have 2 months and everything is close to collapse from economic perspective.
Yeah. You are right. My only explanation to this is that simultaneously 2 things happened. A supply shock and a demand shock. First, it was the supply shock, and then we had the global demand shock. And there are only few things which were left. It was food, first and foremost, utilities, pharma, which basically were not able, from the supply side at a certain moment in time, now it's better, to serve the fear. Remember the depleted supermarkets of soap, of hârtie higienică, so toilet paper, water. No, it's fear. Our systems are not built to deal with fear, and I think they should not be built to deal with fear. But I believe that from the data perspective, we should understand a little bit better the reaction function of people so that we can prepare flexible systems, and better reaction. It will take probably 5, 10, 15 years to prepare, but I think it's one of the big directions for we should go. So again, flexibility and speed, it's not only about companies, but it's about societies. I'm sorry, I was asking myself the same question, but can I tell you also something a little bit more rosy?
Please.
Look, I know that we are looking down now and we say we are going to contract, BCR says we are going to contract 4.7%. Every month we are going to have until the full relief, maybe it will get to, I don't know, -7, -8, -10, it doesn't matter. What we are doing now, we are trying to build an interactive view, or actually a constant view with our clients, trying to evaluate how many of our clients are operating partially stopped and basically closed. Yeah. And please don't quote me because I will deny what I'm going to tell you now. We are operating at 60 to 70% now. Right? If we look at the number of companies which are still open, paying people, so we are looking at certain attributes. 50% of the companies declared that they are not affected. 20 to 25%, something around that they are partially affected. That's the reason for I said we operate 60 to 70. And some others actually completely close the activity, but not for good. They are just putting it in conservation. Now, it's evident, as we kept discussing, that not all the companies who basically closed or the companies who stopped the activity partially have enough capital to burn until activities are going to go back up. That's the reason for our preoccupation, and all the discussion we had was how can we ensure cash reserves for as many companies as possible so they can burn during this period. I believe April is going to look particularly bad. I believe probably first half of May will look particularly bad, but I can tell you that actually the first quarter, including the month of March, was very strong for the Romanian economy. And I mean, this is based on not on what I imagine, it's feedback we receive from people. I am talking every day to 1-2 clients of ours. And I didn't choose the ones from pharma or from food. I also talk to people who are in the transportation. I talk to people who are in furniture production, as I said. I mean, wonderful, wonderful people. They took severe measures, right? But one of them told me, I planned April at 0 to 10%. I'm actually at 15 to 25% from a normal month, which is bad, right? I mean, no debate about that, but maybe not as bad. So I think we need to observe and watch and make sure that, and this is our role now, make sure that any instrument we have which can support a company, we will employ it. But as I said, we will not do it. It's not going to be like a helicopter pouring money. Okay?
Sergiu, well, we kind of overpassed the time limit. I know you got to go. Thank you very much for today's. Thank you for coming and talking to us openly. We highly appreciate it, and you know, that's why we brought you here, because we're really looking up to you, and I think you're part of the group of leaders that we admire.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I really felt great. Although if I would take my coat, you will see that I am completely soaking wet because of my high emotions. Thank you very much. I just want to leave you maybe with three thoughts, which I noted down. Flexibility and speed, but without any reserves on enforcing discipline. Bold actions backed by a very solid risk understanding and the implications of those actions. And very important to you in everything you do in your companies, in the companies you own or in the companies you work for, commitment to a holistic approach. Always try, I don't manage, but I know it will be a great help if I'll be able to achieve that, and I strive to that, for this commitment to a holistic approach. Sometimes, as we say in Romanian, we don't see the forest because of the trees. And I think that this is one of the biggest risks we have when we build the new cycle. Thank you very much. I wish you a great week, and thank you for allowing me to be here.